Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Art Ordoki, and I'm with HandsOn Connect Cloud Solutions, and we're very excited to be presenting to you Service Enterprise today. Service Enterprise is a program of one of our very strong partners, Points of Light. And we're really excited to be working with them and offering this to nonprofits out there that are looking to engage volunteers more effectively. As you know, with HandsOn Connect, we provide a Salesforce solution to being able to manage volunteers in a variety of different ways and being able to report on that engagement at every level. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Lori, Jean, and Delia with Points of Light's Service Enterprise. Lori, Jean.
Great, thanks so much, Art. So as Art said, this is Lori Jean Mantooth with Points of Light, and I'm joined by my colleague Delia Han, and we are excited to be able to share with you a little bit about the Service Enterprise Initiative. And at Points of Light, as the world's largest organization devoted to volunteering and service, we are really excited to be the national administrator of this program and working with organizations all across the country to better engage their volunteers. So when we started looking at the landscape of volunteer engagement in nonprofits across the country right now, we know from reports that are published each year that really on any given day, about 15 million Americans are volunteering for an average of about 3 hours. But what we also know is that over the past decade, there's been a decrease in the number of adults that are volunteering. And of those that do volunteer, about 1/3 of them don't return to volunteer because they're dissatisfied with their experience. And so currently we see nonprofits engaging staff when they have capacity issues. And this really causes them to miss out on an opportunity where they could bring in volunteers to improve in the areas where they really need some additional capacity. And this results in overworked staff and a lack of volunteer management that can cause their volunteer engagement to wane and be very unpredictable. And so it results in nonprofits having to do more with less as the needs in the community continue to grow. And this solution is really what overworks staff and provides episodic volunteer opportunities instead of that more long-term and deeper engagement. And so an intervention is to improve that nonprofit's ability to leverage volunteers in capacity building for that organization, which can really as much as double its ability to meet needs in the community. And we all know that volunteers are very valuable to a nonprofit. So here on the screen, you see some different quotes from reports and also from organizations that have been part of our Service Enterprise program. And we know from research that organizations that engage volunteers are equally as effective as their peer organizations that don't use volunteers, but at half the median budget. And that volunteers also provide other benefits to the nonprofit in terms, in addition to capacity building, volunteers are also twice as likely to volunteer to charity as non-volunteers. So if you think about your organization and how your current volunteer engagement practices are, how would you rate yourself? If you think about your volunteer recruitment, the roles that you provide, are they clear? Do volunteers know what they're doing? Think about the supervision that you offer. Do you have a mix of skilled and more traditional volunteers? How is your volunteer retention rate? Do you offer development opportunities for professional and personal development for your volunteers? Do they have adequate resources to do what they need to do? And then how are you at valuing and appreciating your volunteers? So most people, especially people who've been in the volunteer sector for a while, would say that these are basic volunteer engagement practices that anyone who is working with a volunteer is going to know how to do and do well. However, the research actually shows us that when people were asked about their own volunteer engagement practices, they actually didn't score themselves very highly. So you can see here, even in terms of retaining volunteers, only 26% of organizations said they did that well. And the numbers even go down further and further. Only 6% say they balance skilled and unskilled well. So what is a solution to an organization's situation like this? So the solution that we propose is called the Service Enterprise Initiative. And this is a program that really creates a culture of volunteerism through a change management process. So it's not just bringing in more volunteers, but it's bringing them in the right way to really build the capacity of the organization. It also engages senior leaders from the very beginning of the process. And we know that this is an ongoing problem that volunteer management professionals have faced for a long time, that they may have great ideas, they may see solutions, but they don't have the senior leadership buy-in. And so this program is one that really engages the senior leaders from the very beginning. We also have a statistically valid and research-based assessment tool called the Service Enterprise Diagnostic that helps to evaluate their current volunteer engagement practices and offer opportunities and ideas for ways to improve. The program has training, coaching, and certification, opportunities to connect with other organizations in the community and really across the country as they are working on similar problems. And then there's a lot of cross-sector learning as they're in cohorts with organizations of different sizes and different makeups and even different issue areas. So we know that consistent practices of organizations that operate as a service enterprise are here on the screen. So research has shown us this. Our continuing research as the program has gone on shows us that organizations that operate as a service enterprise, so they have that deep level of volunteer engagement, they exhibit these 10 characteristics. And out of these 10, the top 3 for any organization of any size is planning and development, leadership support, and then effective training of both staff and volunteers. But how can you help an organization that may have 1 or 2 of these characteristics and they're doing really well with those, but they're struggling with some others, or maybe they've never even thought about how they use technology and communications, or they don't have the right resources? So how do you help those organizations to develop the characteristics in a way that is really customizable and fits their needs? And so what we came up with our partners at California Volunteers and have since scaled across the country since 2012 is a process called the Service Enterprise Initiative that is a holistic and customized change management approach. And it really is targeted at helping organizations have a greater return on their investment that they make into their volunteer engagement and ultimately to better achieve their mission. And so this includes a brief application that every organization fills out. There is an orientation, and then each organization takes the diagnostic that I mentioned a moment ago, so the Service Enterprise Diagnostic. At least 3 people from the organization will take the diagnostic, and then they'll sit down with someone from one of our Service Enterprise hubs, which are our organizations that lead this effort in the local community. And for about 2 hours, the hub representative will go over their results from the diagnostic and really get a good idea of where the organization stands, some ideas for where they could go, and most of all, it leads to really good conversation among staff at all levels of the organization who participated in the diagnostic. And then they go through 16 hours of training and up to 10 hours of additional coaching for each organization that is led by the hub and done in a cohort with their peer organizations. And then once they feel they have made progress towards those characteristics, they can apply for national certification. And then as the organizations are committed to being learning organizations, they have their continuous improvement. We do follow-up surveys with them each year to continue to track data and improvement across the years. So why Service Enterprise Initiative? We saw on the last slide that it's an intense process. Change management is not easy. It can be a long and involved effort, but the benefits are really worth it. So the organization has improved processes for how they engage their volunteers. They can provide more meaningful experiences for them. They really can fill gaps that they may have currently in skills or number of staff that they may need. It really helps to create efficiency. They can align their volunteer positions with the mission and vision of the organization. They can also help decrease their turnover. And then overall for the community, it really improves how they engage with other nonprofits and how they engage with community members, the clients that they serve, and it could also help improve the likelihood of that organization receiving funding. So currently, Points of Light and our partner hubs are operating in 20 different states and Puerto Rico. We have one national nonprofit that is also testing out a virtual model. We have 4 independent consultants, and we work very closely with state commissions. So California Volunteers has been the founding partner since this first began. And then, as you see on the screen, we have close partnerships again with several other state commissions that are serving as hubs as well as partners in this effort. We certify organizations in a lot of different issue areas. So you can see the list here on the screen, and I won't read through all of them, but we have everyone from health and wellness organizations to prison support organizations, even local chapters of national nonprofits, organizations of all sizes and budgets, even all volunteer organizations have gone through the program and earned certification. So here on this slide, we see some of the benefits that have been reported by organizations that have gone through the process and earned certification. So more than 80% of them have reported an increase in both volunteers and skills-based volunteers, and more than 60% of them have an increase in their volunteer hours. On average, an organization that goes through Service Enterprise sees a 23% increase in their volunteers. And as we saw at the very beginning of this webinar, most organizations nationally, the trend has been a decrease in volunteerism, but these organizations are actually seeing a 23% increase. Other outcomes that they're seeing are that they can more effectively engage skills-based volunteers in roles such as development and fundraising, finance, HR. They're also seeing a big increase in their direct services that they can offer with their volunteers. So these are numbers that our the organizations report to us each year, and we are tracking across time, and we have continued to see these numbers on trend. So we think about some things that your organization could do. We know that this process is really customized as the organizations go through it. So even though they all go through the same process and they see the same curriculum, each organization takes that content, they develop their own action plan, they come up with the things that they need to do to improve as an organization. And we also know that these organizations are not starting from scratch. They have a lot of good practices already in place. And so whether you have a hub in your local community and are interested in getting involved right away, or you want to learn a little bit more about it, in the meantime, here's just a few things that you can do to start demonstrating some of the characteristics of a service enterprise. So one of those is just create volunteer position descriptions. If you don't do this already, these are a great tool that can help you outline exactly what the volunteer is going to be doing, any expectations, the benefits and support that they get from your organization. And it also shows how they are helping you achieve the mission of the organization and ultimately benefit the others and benefit the community. Another thing you could do is interview volunteers before they are placed into their position so that you can really align their abilities and traits and desires with the right needs of the organization. This next one seems like a really simple thing, but introducing staff and volunteers to each other. So this goes back to the characteristic of technology and communication. So it's not just using technology to communicate, but that interpersonal communication there in the office. So just making sure that the staff and volunteers know each other. Another great tool is engaging experienced volunteers that can help train and mentor new volunteers that come into the organization. And again, one that seems simple, but in terms of resource allocation, it's making sure that the volunteers have spaces available to work and also where they can secure their valuables while they're at work, so they have nothing to distract them from being able to concentrate on what they're there to do. So one of my favorite quotes from all the different ones we've heard from our organizations actually came from a corporate partner who's working with our hub in Virginia, in Richmond, Virginia, so HandsOn Greater Richmond. She said one of our participants summed it up best. They thought that the service enterprise process would transform volunteerism at the organization, but they discovered that it would transform the organization through volunteerism. And so I'd like you to think for just a moment, what would it look like if at your organization, if you were engaging volunteers in new and different ways, what would it look like? How would that transform your organization? And then even beyond that, how would your community look different if you did that? So if you would like to learn more about Service Enterprise, I invite you to visit our website, which is at pointsoflight.org/Service Enterprise Initiative with the dashes there. Or you can contact me or Delia at serviceenterprise@pointsoflight.org. We monitor that site and are happy to answer any questions. And we would also connect you to the nearest hub. We have 40 different hubs across the country in the 20 different states in Puerto Rico, and we can connect you to the one that is closer to you to learn more about how to get involved locally.
Thank you so much, Lori Jean, for that wonderful presentation. Definitely lots for organizations to consider to see how important effective volunteer engagement is for their organization and how it can improve the work that they do in addressing their mission. So thank you for sharing that with our customers and with the community for the great work that you guys